not run because of the fear of recurrence, but run with joy. And paving the path to wellness is about having a healthy body, a peaceful mind, and a joyful heart, according to Dr. Beth Brady's. Those are all such three important parts. So the 12 steps of paving. You've heard me talk today about nutrition and physical activity and stress management and sleep. Those are all important, and social connection. However, those are ones that are covered by a lot of different programs: movement, stress resilience, nutrition, sleep, all very important. But what makes paving different is that it also includes attitude. How can we look at our attitude around healthy lifestyle behaviors? Was I going to have a growth mindset? Was I going to have an attitude that tried to embrace awe and spiritual well-being and a growth mindset and self-compassion? What attitude was I going to carry with me on my journey as I did these healthy lifestyle behaviors? How could I use variety and investigation? Dr. Beth Brady's and I were two of the first physicians ever trained as health and wellness coaches a long time ago. And so it's very important for us that we adhere to the evidence, always are evidence first, bring the evidence forward. But also, we know that it's important to understand the science of behavior change. There's a lot of people who know that they should be eating more fruits and vegetables and moving more, right? So how do we actually help people? How do we meet them where they're at and help them move in the direction of positive change? So we can use the science of variety, of trying different things, trying new foods, trying new ways of physical activity, and keeping our notebook. How does it make me feel when I investigate myself? So it's great if the research shows that meditation is wonderful for the study populations. But if it doesn't work for me, I'm going to investigate, how do I feel when I do those different things? How are my symptoms? How is my energy? How is my mood? Really trying to investigate what works best for me. Timeouts in our fast-paced world. Oh my goodness, timeouts are still a hard one for me, but how do I manage to take time out for myself? What does that look like to create that space, that pause, that area for spiritual well-being, for that joyful heart, as Beth calls, the healthy body is important, peaceful mind is important, but joyful heart, what gives you a joyful heart? Focusing on energy. We talked about energy management and the importance of that and things that bring you healthy sources of energy, what you eat and your connections with people. And then probably the most powerful area, I think, of paving is purpose. I did not know the science of purpose. Like, it was just something that was not taught in medical school. Like, I thought a little bit about my purpose, but really focusing on, why am I doing these healthy lifestyle behaviors? Like, I'm doing this because I want to live a joyful life, because I want to be able to share the evidence-based lifestyle medicine message with others. Like, what is my purpose? And so that's why when I finished this program, I told them, I'm all in. The Paving the Path to Wellness program. How can I help with writing these books? How can I help with this nonprofit organization? And I've donated hundreds upon hundreds of hours to the Paving the Path to Wellness program ever since, as have others. So why? What is your why? What is your why for wanting to be physically healthy? For me, part of my why is my kids, my family. Part of my why is that I want to be able to spread this message. Why? Why does emotional health matter to you? Like, why should you change behaviors, or why should you do things or investigate what supports your emotional health? Think about, what is your why, right? Like, what's your purpose? Why lifestyle as medicine? Why aren't you just going to eat that cake on the way home, right? Why? Because it's going to impact my physical and my mental health. Why? Because it's going to increase my chances of having a shorter life, or stopping for those Krispy Kremes. Like, why is it that I'm going to do these things? So the good news, life is not, I told you about a lot of negatives that happen as far as risks with menopause. But the good news is, if you look at these thriving indices by age, you typically find that they're lowest in the mid to late 40s. But then usually into a woman's 50s, we typically see that thriving index increases. So when you ask people if they're thriving, there's all different things that go into that. But most women would say that they are thriving more and more as they go past menopause. One of the things that plays the biggest role in that is being socially connected. In fact, we know that many women, if you look at all women 50 to 80 years old, they found that 37% of them felt socially isolated. And 33%, 1 in 3 women, has contact with someone outside their home less than or only once a week. So even though we might feel like we have our phones and we're socially connected with all the likes and social media, Social disconnection, social isolation, loneliness is way too common in our society. We know that social connection, being connected, increases self-esteem, empathy, longevity, supports brain health. In fact, this is the longest running study on adult development. And this focuses mostly on men, but I loved Robert Waldinger's comment here. And this is a quote: the people who, after looking at all of this data from generations, people who were the happiest, who stayed the healthiest as they grew old, and who lived the longest were the people who had the warmest connections with other people. It's not the number of our connections, it's about having some warm connections, some meaningful connections. Also, I would love for you to think about how can you find your purpose or use your purpose through connection. So connection, happiness and thriving, purpose and people, all of those come together. There's a lot of overlap there. So it's important for us to listen to others. It's important to see how our gifts, skills, and talents can help others. For me, a main part of my purpose is being able to take my story and some of the yuckiness from it and to take what I've learned and to be able to share that with others. And being surrounded by what I think is part of what's being created with this community of people coming together to listen to these presentations. You are positive, passionate, and purposeful people. People who come to paving are passionate, positive, purposeful people. Not positive all the time, not Pollyanna. Life is hard sometimes. Some of those menopausal symptoms are hard. But how can we surround ourselves with positive, passionate, purposeful people through connection? We know that purpose is one of the single most important predictors of well-being, according to Richard Davidson, founder and director of the Center for Healthy Minds. We know that people who are able to feel like they know and articulate their purpose typically have a greater life satisfaction, greater physical health, and improved brain function. The good thing is that it's not just that you either feel like you have a purpose or you don't, but purpose, it improves health and it's modifiable. We can do targeted interventions, so you can actually work on your purpose to enhance your well-being and function. That's what paving does. But there are ways that you can use looking at the evidence to help us to find our purpose, to help us refine our purpose, to help us feel like we're better living out our purpose. Maybe we have a couple different purposes. Maybe they shift as we go through life. Maybe we want to emphasize this part of our purpose now. But we should work on exploring our interests, exploring how our gifts, skills, and talents can help others, to engage in projects that align with our values, and to focus on your spiritual well-being, whatever that might look like for you. Taking time out for self-reflection, to slow down. I'm a fast talker. I put a lot into these 2 hours, right? Slow down and listen to others, to pause, and to surround yourself with positive, passionate, and purposeful people, often people that are working on these healthy lifestyle behaviors too. I want to leave you with this quote from Gina Shaw. We should emphasize activities and pursuits that we love, that are meaningful to us, and see those not as something extra that we only pursue when we have spare time, but these activities and pursuits that we love that are meaningful to us are essential sources of health and well-being. So you are welcome to join the Paving the Path to Wellness organization and website. We had a cooking class last night. Next week, we have somebody who's discussing planetary health and human health, Dr. Ali Saad. It's free. Anybody's welcome to join, but feel free to check out our Paving the Path to Wellness nonprofit organization website. We have this Paving the Path to Wellness workbook, which is based on the work of Dr. Frates. Not everybody can go through that 12-week program. So this is a workbook that kind of guides people through some of that, and it's used with the programs. All the proceeds benefit the nonprofit organization. They do not come to us. And then, so Beth, Amy, and I did that Paving the Path to Wellness workbook. And then I was telling Beth, as I was going through menopause, I was probably like a year or so into it, and I was like, it is really hard to find evidence-based information that's not saying everybody should use hormone replacement therapy or that you're crazy if you even think of it. I was like, I just want someone, like a source that gives you the evidence, that gives you the information and then says you're smart enough to make the decision or to get the people you need on your team to make that decision. So I said, I'm having a hard time finding that information. And Dr. Beth Brady said, then we should write a book. And I said, no, it takes too much time. My brain is tired. I helped with editing a textbook with 50 some co-authors on it, the Improving Women's Health Across the Lifespan. And we'd done the paving book. And she said, this is important. And so we met every week. And, a year or so later, we have this Paving a Women's Path Through Menopause and Beyond book. All the proceeds also benefit the nonprofit organization. And it's not just through menopause. There's so often I think we talk about menopause and then we're like, but hopefully you have at least a third, if not more, of your life to live after menopause. I plan on living a long, healthy, joyful, hope-filled life. So the menopause transition is truly a time of vulnerability. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. Time of vulnerability where we undergo some change, but it's also a time of great opportunity for transformation so that we can go from just surviving to thriving by using these lifestyle tips we talked about today, by focusing on fiber, blood sugar stability, getting in some movement minutes, by doing some resistance training to prepare for our pillow time with what we do during the day, to enhance your energy recovery environment, to take breath breaks, and last but definitely not least, to prioritize people and purpose. Because I want for each of you to thrive. And I want you to share this message with others. There are so many people yet who don't know this information. They don't know the power of lifestyle medicine. There are drug companies who are out there telling us about all the benefits of those drugs, and I am thankful that we have them. But there are not enough people who are out there saying, listen to this information, this evidence-based information that not only can help you live a longer life, but that can help you lead a healthier life, with a healthy body, a more peaceful mind, a more joyful heart now and for decades to come. So thank you all for listening. This is my personal email address if you want to reach out, Michelle Tollefson at outlook.com. Also, I have my own website, but I'd much rather you check out the paving. I'm not too into social media and my own website, but pavingwellness.org is our nonprofit organization's website. And with the time I have remaining, I'm happy to answer questions. I didn't intend for the speaking to go on this long, but as you can tell, I get excited and I'm passionate about what I do, and I just start talking and sometimes can't stop. So thank you for the opportunity to share that with all of you today.
Thank you so much, Doctor. That was some great information. And as somebody who's not overly concerned with menopause personally, it sounds like it's great advice for everyone, both men and women. It really translates. So we're going to begin the Q&A. We have only about 7 minutes, but let me ask you this question. What is going on in a woman's body during menopause? I feel like, in life, so many things come up in life as we age, and we're just not taught really what's going on and what to expect. So what is going on, and what are common myths about menopause?
Well, so great question. When we're born, as females, we have all of the eggs that we're ever going to have in our ovary and in our ovaries, and so they undergo attrition, just a natural decline as we release them during our reproductive phase, and then just a decline in number as we age. And so, as we see that decline in number of eggs in the ovaries, we start to see a change in hormone levels. The follicle stimulating hormone goes up, trying to stimulate development of new follicles. So we have a change in different hormone levels that leads to a change in estrogen levels. And so that menopause transition, that several years before actually the cessation of menstruation, is when those hormone levels are going up and down in our bodies, trying to figure out how do we get, some of those final eggs, how do we release them? And so periods often become a little more irregular because our body's kind of going through that transition. So it's totally natural. It is not a disease. You do not need to treat it. There are some prescription ways to treat, as well as the lifestyle things I talked about today that people can use. Talk with your physician, somebody who you trust, risk benefits, or your care provider. So I would say myths is that everyone should be on hormone replacement therapy. I think that that's a myth. Also, another myth is I definitely don't believe that that's true, or that it's always healthier to be on hormone replacement therapy. That's not true, but also it's a myth that hormone replacement therapy is horrible for everyone. The literature just doesn't support that. The literature shows that for some women at certain points of time, if they're close enough to menopause, depending on their health history, for some women it is okay and it really helps with menopause symptoms. Another main myth that I always try to crush is that vaginal estrogen is the same risk profile as systemic estrogen. So we have hormone replacement therapy. So we have systemic hormones that are like a patch, that are oral, and all of our cells see that, those levels of hormones. Many women, especially as they get further out from menopause, have vaginal dryness, genitourinary syndrome of menopause. And so there's a lot of women who suffer. They don't have vaginal intercourse, or it's uncomfortable. And they think, well, I don't want to be on hormone replacement therapy. There's nothing that can be done. But really, there are things that can be done. Vaginal estrogen is not an option for everyone. There are certain people with certain hormone-related conditions where it's not a good option, but there are a variety of things. There are vaginal moisturizers, there are vaginal lubricants. There is vaginal estrogen, which has a very decreased, or a very the risk profile is much, much lower compared with systemic hormones. And so too many women suffer in silence, just thinking that this is the way it has to be. And I want them to go in and talk to their healthcare providers about options. And it's one of the reasons why I like in the Paving the Path to Wellness, Menopause and Beyond book, I talked about vaginal moisturizers and vaginal lubricants and intimate relationships and genital vibratory stimulation and the changes that happen in a woman's body, because we're just not taught enough about it. And women deserve to have that right to know.
For someone who is concerned about their hormones, or their hormonal levels, are there, when should they be concerned? When should they consider hormone replacement, and what natural alternatives through lifestyle medicine can they check out?
Sure, sure. So we really go based on symptoms, and then looking at somebody's their personal health history. So we do know that being on hormones. So if a woman has a uterus, we know that in addition to estrogen, which typically helps with the hot flashes and night sweats, they need to be on a progesterone as well. Otherwise, the risk of uterine cancer goes up too much. And so we know that if we're using those medications, we shouldn't use them in somebody with a history of a hormonally positive cancer. We shouldn't be using them in somebody who's like had a stroke, because estrogen is going to increase the risk of a blood clot. Our risk of a blood clot increases when we're pregnant. That's just what happens when our estrogen level goes up. Now, whether or not they're bioidentical or not, there are some hormones such as like Premarin Premarin stands for pregnant mare's urine. And so the Women's Health Initiative, those big studies that came out back when I was in residency, that really showed some of the harms, that not everybody should be on hormone replacement therapy, as we kind of used to think when I started training. So those studies showed us that there are some definite risks, and those weren't bioidentical. We do have bioidentical, or hormones with the chemical structure that's the same as a woman's natural hormones. But just because they're bioidentical doesn't mean that they don't come with risks. I think sometimes that's a myth too, as far as, so my husband's he was a compounding pharmacist. Now he's not in that compounding pharmacy, he's a pharmacist. But I think sometimes there are places that suggest that every woman should have salivary testing for hormone levels. In certain circumstances, it can be good for certain things, but like during a woman's hormonal fluctuation, I mean, you saw that roller coaster. It can change from day to day. So it's more important to go based on symptoms. But it really is a discussion with that healthcare provider as a woman starts to experience those symptoms. Do they want, like, how disruptive are they to their life? Then looking at risk benefit ratio. What are the risks associated with hormone replacement therapy? What are the benefits? Will I be able to sleep more? Are there other things that I can do? There are lifestyle medicine suggestions. For example, the research by Neil Barnard that showed that about, I think, 88% of moderate to severe hot flashes were, or that hot flashes were decreased by 88% in women who did a half cup of soybeans daily, along with a low-fat plant-based diet. And so there are other things like that. Will soy work for everyone? Nope. There are some women who, if they do it, it's not going to work. We don't fully understand that. Is that the gut microbiome? But there's a lot of things that we can do that we should be doing anyway. And so we can do those things. If we're not allergic to soy, we can do some organic soy, and we can do some physical activity, and then say, like, how do I feel after all of that? And if somebody is still really struggling with hot flashes and night sweats that is disruptive to their life, that is negatively impacting their quality of life, go talk to someone. And it's not just hormone replacement therapy. There are other medications too that we can use. Once again, all medications, risk benefit ratio, right? But if somebody, especially if they're in their 40s, is often when women start to experience some of those different symptoms, especially late 40s. It's important to stay really connected with a gynecologist who understands that, or a healthcare provider who understands that. There's NAMS, the North American Menopause Society. A lot of great NAMS healthcare providers who are really good with menopause and staying up to date on that literature as well. And even though there's not literature showing that yoga or physical activity or soy works as well as hormone replacement therapy, I think that's where every woman deserves to know what the evidence is, so they have a whole toolbox, right? So they have all these different things, and so that they can say, what are the symptoms that I'm experiencing? What do we have out there as far as conventional medicine and lifestyle medicine? So they can make an educated decision as far as what do I want to use and for how long and at what dose. And that's really where you need to find that provider where there's a good relationship where you trust one another and can really really engage in shared decision making.
Thank you. We're basically out of time, but I do have somebody who's asking me a quick question, and you are a great resource. So I want to ask for a 30-second answer, if possible, for people with depression. Actually, this person brought up the word anhedonia, which I guess is not finding pleasure in things. How does one identify activities that might give them joy, and in 30 seconds or less?
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So I would say you would want to do all of those different lifestyle things, right? So you're focusing on connection, you're focusing on nutrition and movement and stress and sleep, all of those different things, hobbies. That's all important, but then also needing to look at what's that underlying cause. And so that's where I would encourage them to see a healthcare professional, a mental health provider. There are so many people who struggle, and I think that lifestyle plays a huge role, but there are some people who can benefit from additional, whether that's psychological therapy, mental health experts, or medication in some circumstances too. So I'd encourage them to reach out and to see an expert with no shame, blame, or guilt. Reaching out for mental health help and working on your mental health is truly a sign of strength.
Great. Thank you so much, Doctor. A lot of really great information. And again, that applies, I think, to everyone. So with that, if we can unmute the audience so they could share their appreciation.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone.
Like that.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but he says we can find our new